Welcome to Unholy Inquiry, where each tale leads you deeper into a labyrinth of mystery waiting to be uncovered. This time, join us as we delve into how Poirot exposed a killer's secret life. A fan-crafted story that pays homage to the genius and sophistication of Agatha Christie's iconic detective, Hercule Poirot. We are thrilled to have you with us on this captivating journey. Share your thoughts, let us know where you're tuning in from, and if you spot any details we missed, your feedback is invaluable. Together, let's continue to shape even more thrilling enigmas. Chapter 1. The enigmatic guest emerges. A foreboding stillness enveloped the ancient manor, its darkened windows mirroring the tempest outside, where jagged streaks of lightning illuminated the chaos of the storm. As the thunder rumbled overhead, like the growls of an aggrieved beast, a scream echoed through the hall, shattering the silence. It was a harbinger of doom, a desperate cry, full of both terror and panic. In that disquieting moment, nothing seemed as it was. The shadows lengthened and danced, concealing truths best left hidden. Sir Alistair Featherstone lay sprawled on the parlour rug, a pristine ivory handkerchief stained crimson beneath his head, resembling a mocking smile amidst the chaos. The flickering candlelight cast an eerie glow, the shadows of figures hovering around his still form, their faces a mixture of horror, disbelief, and veiled malice. A sense of dread hung heavily in the air, palpable, as if even the very walls of the manor conspired to keep secrets that clamored to be unmasked. In that moment of terrible revelation, Hercule Poirot entered the scene with an elegance unmistakable, his presence a stark contrast to the chaos that surrounded him. He paused, allowing his keen eyes to absorb the tableau before him, his mind already racing through the potential narratives bubbling beneath the surface. "Ah, but the human heart. It hides many things, mon ami," he muttered, softly, his elegant accent slicing through the cacophony of confused voices swirling around him. The suspects gathered in a tight circle, each of them casting furtive glances from one another to Poirot, as if gauging how much to reveal in the face of the inscrutable detective. There stood Lady Agnes Featherstone, Sir Alistair's estranged wife, a woman unnaturally composed, her features cold and calculating. Between her tightly clenched fists, a hint of desperation flickered. One could not help but wonder what motives lay entangled in her icy demeanour. Then there was Edward, the loyal but resentful family estate manager who had devoted years to serving the Featherstone family, only to watch his loyalty be scorned in favour of wealth and privilege. His hands trembled not from fear, but rather from an old bitterness, one moulded by perceived mistreatment. Finally, Evangeline, the vibrant niece of the deceased, her spirit dulled by grief, held a hidden fire. The world had always spun around her. To be tossed aside now would yield unpredictable consequences. In the swirling tempest of emotions, Poirot's gaze fell upon the body once more. A single, seemingly inconspicuous detail piqued his interest. How could such a refined gentleman have met such an undignified end, sprawled upon the ground, with no apparent sign of struggle? "Ah, the sum of the parts," Poirot mused, as he deftly crouched beside the body. What of his last motion? For what grave purpose was Alistair brought down? The investigation unfolded amidst the storm, with Poirot fostering an atmosphere of patient inquiry. He examined the pair of shining shoes, resting barely a few feet from Sir Alistair, their immaculate polish a stark contradiction to the crime scene, and he noted the mud clinging to the heel. "Tell me, mon ami," he directed towards Edward, whose unease was palpable. Do you often walk these hallowed halls in such footwear? His question lingered, and the unease settled into the room like a thick fog. No, that is, I had to collect some files from the study, Edward stammered, evading eye contact, his voice trembling. I must have dragged in a bit of mud from outside. Poirot's gaze did not waver. The storm began but moments ago, yet you entered the study at an uncharacteristically late hour and kept the door unlocked because a guest had arrived. The implication hung in the air, exposing Edward's shifty demeanor, yet the detective felt that the clues were still but an incomplete mosaic. Lady Agnes's icy composure began to crack as she interrupted the interrogation. It was no mere guest. We were expecting company. A certain Mr. Percy Carter, an undesirable associate of Alistair's. Her lips curled disdainfully as she spoke the name, revealing a deep-seated contempt wrapped tightly around jealousy and marital disdain. This would be the last place such a man should ever visit. That was enough to shift the suspicion away from Edward momentarily as Poirot's mind twisted around the new variable introduced into the perplexing riddle. Monsieur Carter, a man whom our distinguished Sir Alistair has had dealings with? I must inquire, would it benefit anyone, perchance, to have a word with this guest? Perhaps he arrives at an inconvenient hour, no? When the storm finally abated and the evening air felt solely oppressive, Poirot gathered the suspects for another discourse. His questions became sharper, the tension electric. Evangeline, who had been quiet till now, revealed a simmering frustration. Uncle Alistair had grown estranged, yes, but I too had my grievances with him, one who only cared for his fortune. Who was I to him? Her voice edged with bitterness, each word tinged with betrayal. Poirot observed them closely, noting the contradiction in her emotions. She withheld as many secrets as she revealed. As he executed his inquiries, a red herring flickered in the corners of his mind, a fleeting glance shared between Lady Agnes and Edward. It suggested a graver alliance than the mere surface suspicion of hostility, yet the intricacies of their exchange remained obscured. The investigation's tensions spiraled, leaving Poirot to interrogate the peculiar family dynamics interwoven with greed and disdain. Just as he felt close to grasping the crux of the enigma, the storm surged back, the lightning illuminating their pallid faces, revealing the masks of fear, shame, and silent accusations dancing across their features. Then, in an unexpected flash of clarity and ambition, Poirot assembled them. Ah, mes amis, what does the heart desire? Are we led by vengeance or anguish? A revelation must unfold, a voice hidden amidst the shadows. It is time for the truth to be revealed. The atmosphere thickened with uncertainty as the detective laid bare the final connections in the morass of suspicion. Just as a sudden clap of thunder echoed the tension, Poirot delivered his conclusion. The true guest has been amongst us all along, one who crafted an illusion of innocence with a far more nefarious purpose, clouding clear sight with a veil of tragedy. His words hung like the dagger of betrayal he had uncovered. The truth was that Alistair had wronged his family in ways unfathomable, and it was his own flesh and blood, the scorned niece, who had orchestrated this night's chaos, spurred by desperation, veiled as love. In a final climax of anguish, Poirot stepped back, realizing the grave cost of familial bonds fraying under the weight of greed and resentment. As Evangeline collapsed, despair flooding her as she faced her fate, Poirot turned and with a heavy heart uttered his final observations. Remember, my friends, Even the shadows of sorrow carry the weight of truth, for they too find their way into the light. With that, the storm rumbled on, leaving behind shattered dreams and broken connections shrouded in the darkness of a night worn down by secrets and betrayal. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Shadows. A final scream pierced the stillness of the night, an agonized cry drowned out by the relentless deluge of rain as it lashed against the ancient stones of Blackwood Manor. The turbulence of the storm echoed the panic within, playing on the frayed nerves of those gathered within its weathered walls. As the flickering candlelight cast dancing shadows across the room, a figure, laced in darkness, stumbled through the door, bloodied but alive, a grim reminder of how quickly life can turn to chaos. In the flickering glow of the nearly extinguished candles, Hercule Poirot stood, his presence an island of calm amidst the tempest of raw emotions swirling in the room. The brooding manor felt charged with tension, shadows cloaking the secrets that lingered in the air like a heavy fog. Murder. It seems to have taken refuge here once more, Poirot observed, his voice a silky whisper, tinged with an undertone of sorrow. But the heart, mon ami, it conceals more than mere intentions. It hides its true nature behind layers of emotion and desire. The body lay sprawled on the polished floor, a faithful servant of the manor. The housekeeper, Mrs. Millicent Thomas, her lifeless form stark against the opulent surroundings. A single gash marred her elegant neck, crimson staining the white apron that had once symbolized her devotion to the household. As the storm raged outside, the gathered guests watched in horror. A web of confusion and suspicion tightened around them. Lady Agnes Featherstone, her pale countenance betraying a flicker of grief, clutched her pearls like a talisman against the chaos. Edward, the estate manager, stood resolutely at the back, his features wrought with a volatile blend of fear and anger, his loyal facade struggling to hold under the weight of this new revelation. Then there was Evangeline, Lady Agnes's niece, her vibrant spirit dimmed by the tragic tableau before her. "Who could have done this?" she gasped, her voice quivering as her eyes darted madly across the faces of the room, searching for an answer that eluded everyone. Each suspect hovered beneath the surface of suspicion, like sharks beneath the swell of an ominous tide, the truth concealed in the depth of their emotions. With an air of quiet determination, Poirot began his inquiry, his mind racing through the possibilities laden with deception. "We are left with a cruel puzzle, mes amis, but I wonder who amongst us bears the most profound grievances towards our beloved Mrs. Thomas?" His gaze swept over the anxious faces, searching for that subtle hint of guilt that lay hidden in plain sight. Edward stepped forward, hands clenching unwaveringly at his side, his gaze hardening as he spoke. Millicent was a loyal servant, but she had become increasingly obstinate. She would challenge my decisions, speak back to me as though she was of equal stature. Some might say it was time for someone to put her in her place. His words dripped with disdain, masking a deeper truth, yet Poirot remained undeterred, taking note of the tremor in Edward's voice, a telltale sign of buried rage. "Interesting indeed, monsieur," Poirot replied, his brow furrowing ever so slightly. "Was it perhaps jealousy that forged the blade which silenced her? An elaborate charade bared to expose a personal vendetta?" But before Edward could respond, Lady Agnes interjected, her voice laced with contempt. "You should not leap to conclusions, Poirot. The woman took liberties. She pried into matters that were not her concern. Just last week, I discovered that she had been keeping a ledger of our financial affairs, a blatant breach of trust. Ah, how curious, Poirot mused, his eyes narrowing. A servant holding the reins of power, perhaps. But might she also have known too much about certain family transactions, secrets buried beneath layers of deceit? The pieces of the puzzle were beginning to align, but yet the captivating dance of shadows had other designs for them. They concealed more than just the truth. As the storm continued its relentless onslaught, the mistrust thickened among the assembled suspects, and Poirot soon directed his queries toward Evangeline. "And you, my dear, what could possibly connect you to our dear Mrs. Thomas?" Evangeline straightened her posture, an eruption of wounded pride rising to the forefront. "I had my differences with her, yes, but they were trivial. She loved Uncle Alistair above all. She wouldn't dare resist the family." Her voice bore the weight of conviction. Yet even as she spoke, a spark of defiance danced in her gaze, revealing that hidden embers lay just below the surface. Poirot continued, contemplating the dynamics at play as the storm reached a crescendo. "Tell me, mademoiselle, how well did you truly know your uncle's affairs? Did you, perchance, discover the secrets he tried to keep from you, the repercussions that might have arisen had they come to light?" Each word, deliberate and sharp, hung in the charged atmosphere while Evangeline flinched as if struck. Days turned to nights, secrets whispered amid furious breath, and suspicion turned inward, reflecting back on itself with an intensity only matched by the tempest outside. The investigation unveiled a symphony of treachery, clues intermingled with deception, leading Poirot into a labyrinth of red herrings designed to mislead. As suspicion shifted from one character to another, he observed the delicate threads connecting them all, each one dyed in shades of resentment and betrayal. Finally, deep in the heart of the storm, Poirot gathered the suspects for a final confrontation, a veil of clarity illuminating the shadows that had long obscured the truth. The key to this mystery, mes amis, lies in betrayal so profound it cuts through flesh and bone. We have heard motives laid bare, yet the most insidious of truths often lies silent, concealed beneath layers of piety. In an agonizing twist, Poirot turned toward Lady Agnes. "You are the linchpin of this entire tragedy. The systematic dismantling of your husband's legacy was not undertaken by the poor servant, but by one driven by a wrath born from neglect and scorn." As the reality settled upon her, icy disdain melted away. "You have been orchestrating the downfall of all around you, vulnerable yet ferocious in your pursuit of control. The ledger was not merely a tool of manipulation, it was an instrument of exposure to shield oneself from the ire directed at her precious reputation." Evangeline's outburst shattered the stillness, a final act of denial. "You are wrong. You see only half the picture," she cried, her fury erupting in staccato breaths. Yet Poirot remained poised. "Ah, but the heart does not lie, mademoiselle. It lays bare our deepest yearnings, revealing the darkest of truths." In that poignant moment, surrounded by echoes of a storm on the fringes of their lives, Poirot uttered the concluding revelation as despair settled thickly in the air. A fractured legacy breeds animosity, yet it is the innocent that pay the greatest price. For in this dark tableau, it is blood that binds one to another, and betrayal that unravels those ties. Remember this, my friends, for even amidst the shadows of our deeds, the truth shall always find its way to the light. With that, the storm raged on, the swirling shadows weaving a tapestry of sorrow. leaving behind the hollow remains of a family crushed beneath the weight of secrets, betrayal, and the harrowing whisper of truth. Chapter 3. A Sinister Discovery. A blood-curdling scream pierced the oppressive silence of the night, echoing against the ancient stones of Blackwood Manor as if the very walls mourned the loss of innocence. A flickering candle, clutching desperately to its final ember, illuminated a figure crumpled on the grand staircase, blood pooling beneath her, a vivid scarlet against the decadent marble floor. It was a sight that could freeze the heart of even the most hardened observer. The storm outside roared anew, each clap of thunder seeming to mock the horror that had just unfolded within the manor's hauntingly dim expanses. Hercule Poirot, standing at the threshold, regarded the gruesome tableau with a calm yet troubled brow. Ah, the night yields its secrets once more. May we, he intoned softly, his keen gaze absorbing every detail. The scattered pearls of Lady Agnes, the trembling hands of Edward clenching a banister, the pallid visage of Evangeline, who appeared to be trapped within a shroud of disbelief. Such a cruel twist this storm has orchestrated, for amidst the shadows lies a truth yet unearthed. The lifeless body before him belonged to Beatrice Watts, the new maid, a promising young woman whose ambition had swiftly turned into a tragic end. Her life had barely begun, yet in a moment it had been snuffed out, the very essence of vitality spilling onto the floor, soaking into the fabric of their historical abode. The guests stood like statues, their expressions a cocktail of shock and unease, eyes flitting from one to another as if searching for answers that eluded even the most perceptive among them. Poirot stepped forward, his shoes clicking softly on the polished floor as he approached the scene. "Mes amis," he declared, his voice cutting through the air like a knife. "We must not tarry. This house breathes with hidden tales, and we are but mere spectators to a dark play unfolding." His mind churned with observation, each heartbeat a reminder of the fragility of human life. "Tell me, who among us held a grievance against a girl barely known? Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami." He turned to Edward, the estate manager, who tried to mask his hesitation with a veneer of authority. "Monsieur, you had charge of the household. Might it be said that Beatrice was less inclined to heed your orders?" Edward bobbed his head vehemently, yet the tremor in his voice suggested something far less composed. Not at all. She was dutiful and kind. A mere slip of the foot could have caused this." His words suffocated with desperation, and Poirot cast a shrewd glance at him, noting the way his eyes skittered around the room, avoiding the piercing gaze of Lady Agnes, who stood rigid against the wall. Lady Agnes, her expression cold, was quick to interject. "I dismissed her not a week ago, but not for any malevolent reason. She was simply too eager in her tendency to meddle with the affairs of the household." A flicker of something, resentment perhaps, crossed her features. One cannot have naive children undermining the authority of a well-structured household. Poirot narrowed his gaze. Her anger appeared a mask for a deeper wound, one concealed beneath a facade of decorum. Evangeline, still grappling with the immediate aftermath of her shock, suddenly drew breath, as if awakening from a dream. "Is it possible someone amongst us wished to harm her?" Her voice quavered, yet bore the weight of accusation. Each current of emotion tugged insistently at Poirot's attention as he continued to weave through the murky layers of deceit cloaked within the manor. Poirot's mind worked feverishly. He requested everyone to gather in the parlor. The flickering flames casting exaggerated shadows against the walls. As he paced the room, brushing against the remnants of yesterday's joys, now sullied by dread, he transformed the atmosphere of fear into a suffocating web of inquiry. "Let us examine the threads of our entangled fates," he implored, scanning the countenance of each suspect, each one a participant in this treacherous drama. The dialogue swirled like the tempest raging outside, the tension palpable. "Evangeline, what can you tell me about Beatrice's interactions with your uncle?" Evangeline hesitated, her face tightening with indignation. "She was nothing to do with my uncle. We scarcely exchanged pleasantries. How could you even think?" A fault line of betrayal trembled her voice, yet it was Edward who interjected, frustration boiling over. "Perhaps it is you who shared secrets entwined in that ledger Lady Agnes so valiantly despised." "Ah, how exquisitely you deflect, monsieur," Poirot said, his eyes narrowing, keen and unwavering. "A storm of your own making, roused by your guilt. Yet the ink of betrayal runs deeper still. Lady Agnes, was there not more than mere dismissal behind your cold facade? A hint of jealousy, a startling revelation etched in your still-beating heart?" As the accusations flew like thunderclaps, Poirot felt whispers of deception spiral around him, teasing at truths lying just beneath the surface. Lady Agnes turned pale as another echo of a past filled with lost aspirations and regrets rattled within her. "You dare suggest I harbor such sentiments? Beatrice was but a servant." "Mais non, madame. The depths of your animosity are visible to even the blindest observer," Poirot quipped, his tone cutting iron. The unraveling of truth began to dance before him like the shadows on the walls, coy yet revealing. Before the tension could escalate further, Poirot grasped a loose ribbon hanging from Beatrice's gown, leading him to a vital clue, the torn edge of a note half hidden within the fabric of the hem. With utmost care, he unveiled the hidden message, each word escalating the tension surrounding them. "I have uncovered a thread," he pronounced, eyes flashing with the light of a dark revelation. "It speaks of a meeting, a clandestine arrangement entirely invisible to our eyes. What other secrets lie beneath the surface of this innocent facade? The truth festers like an unseen infestation, my friends." As the gathered guests glanced at one another, the storm outside erupted into a full tempest, mimicking the chaos brewing within. The intrigue built like the storm's crescendo, each moment tightening the noose of suspicion that now encircled them. But there lay deeper motives entwined within this tapestry of despair that would soon unfurl. Just as Poirot began to weave the final strands of this grim narrative, an exclamation drew his attention. A photograph revealed by Evangeline, previously overlooked amidst the debris of shattered lives. A snapshot of the housekeeper, Beatrice, and a stranger entwined in an intimate embrace. A flicker of jealousy igniting the air like dry tinder. "Behold!" Poirot exclaimed with fervor. "A portrait possessing grave implications. The stranger was not just a figment. He holds the key to unravel this deadly puzzle." With the pieces connecting, Poirot turned back toward the room, eyes sparkling with the thrill of revelation. And thus, we face the final curtain before the act's true reveal. Lady Agnes, you have hidden wounds that the heart cannot bear forever. Falsely believing fear to be your ally, you fed the beast of jealousy. As disbelief washed over her features, the realization of her betrayal dawned like light piercing a storm. The strands of deceit ignited, revealing the dark underbelly of ambition and betrayal festering beneath the surface. And in that moment, Poirot laid bare the essence of horror that intertwined their lives. Each secret, exchanged during quiet nights, birthed yet another sin, he murmured softly, his voice enveloping the room in its calm certainty. For in the shadows of our hearts, we must acknowledge that all ties, family, loyalty, friendship, are but a mask for the unanimity of a soul possessed by envy and regret. The storm rumbled on. Outside, but within the depths of Blackwood Manor, the truth wielded the greatest thunder. Poirot, the orchestrator of this dreadful symphony, stood in stark contrast to the chaos around him. In that heavy atmosphere, he offered the only hope amid despair, the light of truth, ever relentless, unfurling amidst the darkest nights. Chapter 4. The Alibi That Crumbled. The candlelight flickered nervously, casting long shadows across the opulent drawing-room of Blackwood Manor, as the storm outside unleashed its fury. In that moment of tempestuous chaos, a breathless gasp echoed against the walls, a singular sound of horror that sliced through the air like a knife. Poirot's sharp instincts summoned him to attention, for such a sound signaled that the lines of safety drawn around the unsuspecting guests had begun to erode, revealing the treacherous fabric of their concealed lives. Lady Agnes, still reeling from the grisly discovery of Beatrice Watts, clutched a silk handkerchief to her lips, as if to stifle her fear and the regret that now hung palpably in the air. Edward, the estate manager, stood with an unnatural stillness, his hands trembling as he traced the ornate patterns of the wallpaper, seeking solace in the merely ornamental when dread clouded his thoughts. Yet it was Evangeline, the grieving niece, whose tear-streaked face now twisted in confusion, that intrigued Poirot most. "Mademoiselle, surely you have an account to offer us? An explanation for the cacophony that permeated this night?" he inquired gently, though his mind was a tempest of suspicion and inquiry. I do not know. I merely heard her scream. What could possibly lead anyone to such an act?" Her emotional turmoil was palpable, each word tumbling from her mouth with an urgency that betrayed her fear. Yet Poirot noted the fleeting flash of something deeper. Grief veiled a burgeoning anger, a brief glimpse into the fissures of her heart. "Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami," he mused silently, his piercing gaze skimming the room, lingering on the expression of each guest, now radicalized by fear. As the intensity of the storm surged, Poirot guided the guests into the parlor, the very space now charged with the weight of grief and suspicion. "We stand at the precipice of truth, mes amis. To uncover that which is hidden, we must sift through the sand of deception and reveal the stones beneath." He raised his hands in a gesture of unity, though the air crackled with strife as unspoken accusations threatened to ignite. "Poirot, this is madness," Edward erupted, his composure faltering. "You cannot suggest that any of us would resort to—" A scowl etched deeper into his furrowed brow, revealing a man clinging to the edges of his sanity, as though he were grappling not merely with the consequences of actions, but with the very foundations of his honor. "Alas, monsieur, it is the very madness of humanity that spirals us into destruction," Poirot countered, his tone unwavering, yet infused with a delicate empathy that belied the turbulence around him. "Let us reflect, shall we? Each of you has intertwined your destinies with that of Beatrice Watts. So I ask, who among you felt threatened by her presence?" The inquiries commenced, leading into a spiral of half-formed truths and outright lies. Lady Agnes seethed, exposing her disdain for Beatrice, while Edward tugged nervously on his collar, his every response lining him closer to the edge of desperation. Evangeline, however, tightened her grip on a silver locket that hung against her chest, a tether to an unspoken promise, and perhaps a hidden narrative of her own. An observation caught Poirot's eye. Lady Agnes glanced, almost imperceptibly, at Evangeline, her expression revealing a mixture of disdain and something darker. "You accuse me, as if I could entertain the idea of harming a servant." The lady's voice dripped with incredulity, veiling her discomfort behind a mask of elegant surprise. "Mais non, madame. Yet jealousy is a cunning mistress, one that can disguise itself beneath layers of social hierarchy," Poirot replied, the spark of understanding igniting in his mind. What secrets lay between these two women? As he interrogated each in turn, Poirot's sharp acuity unveiled subtle inconsistencies. Evangeline, in her fervent denials, exhibited an emotional volatility that struck deep chords of suspicion. "I had no reason to harm her, no reason at all," she declared. But as the chilling winds howled against the manor's facade, Poirot's attention sharpened at her fleeting gaze toward the fireplace, where embers danced ferociously, masking a deeper turmoil of her spirit. Much of the room's tension was punctuated by furtive glances and words tinged with venom, each participant intricately aware of the other's hidden agendas. Poirot moved through the labyrinth of deceit, mindful of each micro-expression, each involuntary twitch that hinted at the unraveling truths. He paused in hypocrisy. The implications of a certain note re-emerged in the recesses of his intellect, a dagger poised silently between Lady Agnes and Evangeline, when fabric, heartstrings, and hidden pacts seemed to braid their fates with the fragile and unresolved narrative of the dead maid. In the receptive quiet of his thoughts, a sudden, sharp realization pierced through. Could Evangeline have orchestrated the series of unfortunate events to break free of this familial yoke? A twist of emotions deepened further when Poirot turned his attention back toward Edward. "Ah, monsieur, you claimed ignorance regarding Miss Watts, yet your alibi appears to falter." Poirot pressed, his gaze unwavering as he struck with precision. "It is rumored that you might have initially fostered an attachment to the maid, but also that you bore witness to her interactions with the household." Edward's brow beaded with sweat as he attempted to mask his distress behind an indifferent facade. "I have no attachment to any maid. It was merely an arrangement," he stammered, but Poirot detected the hidden truths woven in his denial. "An arrangement? You seek to deflect attention, yet I sense the stirrings of guilt within. Each punctuation of your defense hints at an urgency to shield another, to guard a betrayal perhaps unspoken." The atmosphere was electric with the possibility of revelation, but amidst the tension, a sudden discovery within the room's shadows demanded Poirot's attention. A cabinet door, slightly ajar, beckoned to him as an uninvited whisper. He approached cautiously, his heart racing in tandem with the storm. Within lay a forgotten photograph, the same snapshot that had emerged the previous evening, now marked by the dampness of time and memory. Evangeline's heart raced visibly, the color draining from her countenance. "Where did you find that?" she implored, as her posture stiffened like a stretched bowstring, ready to snap. But Poirot's mind unraveled the hidden nodes of betrayal. Yes, the very photograph that links Beatrice to a mystery man, a rendezvous that may not have been mere coincidence. With each word, the gravity of the situation settled deeper, like the weight of impending lament. The emotional currents within the room gathered momentum flowing into the implosion of their respective truths. Shall we discuss this stranger who now holds dominion over our fates? Poirot inquired. For it appears that all threads converge upon him, a character who inspired envy, perhaps, or even rage among you. His words infused the air with a renewed tension, the crafting of a tapestry now painfully drawn before them. It was there, in that very moment, that an unseen connection crystallized. The stranger, a liaison dimly veiled, thus revealed a pivot point around which both jealousy and despair spun, like a dark ribbon under layers of pretense. But it was the revelation that followed that would seal the fate of those within the manor forever. It is within the murkiness of hidden allegiance that the truth lingers, Poirot proclaimed, framing his declaration with calm authority. Someone here, driven by fear, has sought to protect themselves and perhaps destroy another. Edward detests his own complicity and fails to grasp that true loyalty lies with those we nurture in secret. He paused, looking deep into Evangeline's eyes. Yet, my dear, when betrayal stands alongside passion, collateral damage reclaims its price as unwitting victims fall unwillingly subject to fate's cruel hand. As gasps of disbelief permeated the space, Poirot stepped further, illuminating the dark corners woven with the chains of vengeance and regret. Alas, the alibi, dear friends, has crumbled. Each of you a player in this diabolical drama, irrefutably entangled to the very end. As the rain wept against the windows, each heart within Blackwood Manor now bore the weight of a hidden truth, a grave betrayal rivaling the storm outside. And thus, the thunder bears witness, my friends, Poirot concluded as he surveyed the faces before him, strained and aching with revelation. In revealing the unseen forces at play, we unravel not only the essence of murder, but the frailty of love and ambition that entwines us all. Chapter 5. The Photograph That Haunts. The silence of Blackwood Manor was suddenly shattered by a piercing scream that echoed like a banshee through the dimly lit halls, reverberating against the opulent walls adorned with fading portraits and memories of a time long past. Rain lashed against the windows, nature itself seemingly mirroring the chaos and dread that had befallen its inhabitants. Within this ancestral abode, the air was thick with fear, tension palpable as a storm brewed, not just outside, but within the hearts of its unfortunate guests. Amidst the swirling tempest of emotions, Poirot stood at the center, a beacon of calm. He exuded a serene confidence that contrasted sharply with the distress of those around him. "Mes amis," he declared, his voice steady yet resonating with urgency, "we are burdened with a heavy mantle of truth, one that demands to be unearthed." As the flickering candlelight danced upon his features, he knew that the photograph unveiled before them, representation of unspoken truths and hidden relationships, was but a harbinger of what lay beneath the surface. In the parlor, Lady Agnes's painted facade cracked, revealing a simmering resentment bubbling just beneath her aristocratic demeanor. Once a formidable mistress of the estate, she now felt threatened by the very foundations of her life. The enigmatic figure in the photograph, a handsome man with dark, watchful eyes, elicited feelings of inferiority she had long been forced to ignore. "Such a disheveled trifle! It is merely a forgotten remnant of the past," she retorted dismissively, yet Poirot's keen eye caught the slight tremor in her hand as she clutched her wine glass, a fragile facade shrouded in bitterness. Evangeline stood nearby, her face stark against the shadows, every bit the grieving niece, yet her eyes sparkled with defiance. The photograph had unveiled her secret, one that intertwined her fate with that of the late Beatrice Watts, an inescapable bond tinged with both passion and betrayal. "What does it matter, this absurd figure?" she scoffed, her voice quaking with suppressed rage. Yet Poirot observed her clenched fists, poised like a coiled serpent, waiting to strike, the betrayal she harbored involuntarily shaping her words. "Ah, but the human heart. It hides many things, mon ami," he reflected inwardly, noting her discomfort with each inquiry he made. It was Edward, the estate manager, whose own dark history bore heavily upon him. Struggling beneath the weight of concealed alliances and whispered last words, his loyalty to Lady Agnes warred with his growing connection to Evangeline. He had once cared for Beatrice, perhaps more than either of them realized. Whenever the photograph was mentioned, a shadow flitted across his eyes. "I knew Beatrice only in passing," he insisted too vehemently, the very essence of his being marked by a desperation to conceal the truth behind the fabric of his alibi. Poirot's piercing gaze never left him, for the evidence of guilt often lay within the eyes, revealing a tragedy still unfolding behind that simple facade. The storm worsened outside, gusts of wind howling against the manor's facade, as Poirot directed his skillful attention towards the flickering shadows in the corners of the room. He raised a hand and with great solemnity summoned each suspect to gather round. "We are, perhaps, at the juncture of enlightenment," he declared, his expression fixing upon the photograph that still lay stained with the dampness of time. "But first, we must traverse through this labyrinth of deception. Lady Agnes, what defense do you offer your delicate position this evening?" "Defense?" she spat, her voice rising in panicked indignation. "I owe no one here an explanation. My loyalties lie with my family, unlike some." As the tension thickened, Poirot couldn't dismiss the thin thread of vulnerability exposed within her mask of arrogance. In search of a revelation, he subtly turned to Evangeline to probe her recollections further. "And you, mademoiselle, the photograph. How did you come about to possess it?" Evangeline hesitated, the flicker of her tempestuous heart a stark contrast to the calmness of Poirot's inquiry. "It was merely an old keepsake belonging to Beatrice," she finally replied. Yet a sheen of sweat betrayed her confidence, and her eyes darted toward Edward, a silent plea wrapped in fear. Poirot, keenly aware of the nuances at play, seized upon a small detail, an incongruity in Evangeline's countenance. "Ah, but we must address the unaddressed. You are beset with a darkness radically entangled with Beatrice's fate. Did you not wish the world to unravel her connection to this man?" He gestured at the photograph, a noose tightening around their collective guilt with each word. "Enough. I've done nothing." Evangeline's voice cracked, each syllable echoing with anger and desperation. But as she spoke, Poirot noted a nearly imperceptible glance towards Edward, a flicker of shared conspiracy beneath her mounting facade, a glimpse of understanding shared behind the very shadows that enveloped them all. Alas, Poirot mused to himself, the human heart is a storm unto itself. Yet beneath the tempest of their emotions and the raging storm outside, a delicate web of betrayal began to weave itself into the narrative, a truth that tangled the lives of Edward, Evangeline, and the deceased Beatrice, revealing layers that even Poirot began to consider, unraveling with cautious skepticism. A sudden realization struck him as he pieced together the fragments of suspicion. He ventured to peel back the layers bound by treachery and uncovered a deep conspiracy entwining them all in a grief where the lines of loyalty blurred. As the clock struck a mournful hour, evoking an unsettling rhythm, Poirot deftly laid bare the core of their entanglement. To shield oneself from fear, one must carry the burden of another, he declared, his voice cutting through the mounting anxiety, charged with the intensity of his indomitable will. The revelation of a hidden liaison entangled in feigned affections stood before them, a picture of dreadful irony, parodying their fragility within the confines of familial loyalty. At the apex of their mounting dread, Poirot disclosed the culminating testimony of their fates, mischievously twisting their intentions with the elegance of a master conductor conducting a symphony of suspicion. Each of you, my dear friends, is guilty of harboring a darkness concealed beneath layers of innocence. The true betrayal, the tempest we now face, has not solely manifested in this room, but has begun for far too long beneath your very noses. With those words, an agonizing stillness engulfed the parlor, the tremors of truth shaking their moralities to the core as the looming specter of betrayal took center stage. The photograph that haunted them, now a catalyst for unveiling the crude reality, served as a reminder of love twisted into loss and the crumbling certainty of their tangled pasts. "May we heed this one conclusion," Poirot said at last, surveying their astonished faces, now bearing witness not merely to their own unmasking, but to the very shadows of their choices threatening to consume them. What haunts us most are the ghosts we choose to ignore, the undeniable cost of our unintended betrayals. As the wind roared outside, it became clear that the storm they had sought refuge from was but a prelude to the tempest within, a darkness that now permeated the very walls of Blackwood Manor, destined to linger long after the truth was set free. Chapter 6. Tension in the air. The clock's persistent ticking became a metronome for anxiety, each tick echoing the sinister storm outside, as the shadows rose and fell with the flickering candlelight. The thunder rumbled like the anguished cries of souls trapped within Blackwood Manor, where the presence of fear seemed almost corporeal, wrapping around each inhabitant like a suffocating shroud. Poirot stood resolute, his heart attuned to the unease permeating the parlor, eyes darting subtly over the faces before him, scrutinizing the very essence of their discomfort. "Ah, mon ami," Poirot whispered to himself, "tension lingers in the air like a bittersweet perfume, too close to the nose, causing one to discern its rank undertones. What secrets do these walls conceivably hide?" At that moment, he resolved to unearth the layers of deceit cloaked beneath their polished exteriors. Each person had a past, a tangled web of connections, a potential motive that smoldered beneath their facades. The storm reached an unsettling crescendo outside, and as the atmosphere inside the manor shifted from uncertainty to chaos, the lights suddenly flickered before plunging them into darkness. Panic erupted. A shattering crash resonated from the hallway, shrouded in an ominous void that was almost suffocating. Poirot remained calm amidst the chaos, his internal compass pointing toward the source of the noise. Summoning his light, he guided himself towards the corridor, his footsteps a quiet whisper against the ancient floorboards, barely echoing the thrumming tempo of his heart. There, amid the shadows, he discovered Evangeline, her face pale as moonlight, reflected off a broken vase, shards scattered like fallen stars around her trembling hands. "What is it, mademoiselle?" he inquired, his voice steady against her panic. "What has transpired here?" Her breath came in sharp gasps. I I saw someone in the dining room, a figure cloaked in darkness, lurking. Mon Dieu, Poirot mused, heeding the urgency in her tone. Then perhaps the phantoms we fear are not merely spectres of our imagination. He gestured to examine the room, but as they moved cautiously towards the dining chamber, tension unveiled itself in shadow, a silence so profound that it held the echoes of anticipation. Inside, they stumbled upon, amid the gourmet, spread a misplaced silver candlestick, stemming curiosity from Edward, who had rushed in behind them, eyes wide with concern. "What has happened?" he asked, his voice stiff. Yet Poirot recognized the tremor, held beneath the guise of nonchalance. Evangeline pointed with a trembling finger at the remnants of the shattered vase. "The figure! I swear it was real." Her desperation splintered off the walls. Yet Edward's gaze darted between Evangeline and Poirot, revealing perhaps a deeper, more cavalier knowledge about this unseen threat. Poirot observed. How intriguing that Edward oscillated between concern for Evangeline and the careworn expression that suppressed his secrets, bubbling up through just the slightest fissures within. If this figure was indeed here, it is our duty to explore the corridors of fear, Poirot declared with firm resolve. Let me remind you, reality often obscures itself among shadows. Amidst the swirling echoes of the manor, Poirot began to pull strings of curiosity tighter, eliciting information from all who lingered within the walls. Lady Agnes was next, her aristocratic demeanor faltering as she cradled a wine-glass, eyes darting suspiciously around as if the very shadows conspired against her. "What do you know of the strange occurrences, Lady Agnes?" he pressed gently, though with a calculated intensity behind his words. Her chin lifted defiantly, but it belied a flicker of fear, a vulnerability he wielded deftly, much like a master painter sketching doubts upon a canvas. "Enough of your absurdities, Poirot. You speak of shadows, yet it is your scrutiny that breeds them. Does it not occur to you that the mere suggestion of something lurking is but a reflection of our own weaknesses? I am here to safeguard my legacy," she exclaimed, her voice quaking in its pretense of strength. Edging closer, Poirot then turned back to Edward, whose loyalties fluttered like the flicker of candle flames. "What of you, my good man? What do you conceal behind that stoic visage? Your alibi seems woven with threads too thin to bear the weight of this moment." Edward hesitated, a bead of sweat glistening against his brow. "I am merely doing my duty, Poirot. Lady Agnes discerns shadows where none exist. I have done everything in my power to maintain this estate. I had no reason to harbor ill will towards anyone, especially Beatrice." At that name, the air grew thick, almost palpable in its bitterness. The three stood in an uneasy truce of simmering suspicions, each tethered to a secret that clung like fragrance within a confined space. Poirot, recognizing the fiction of loyalty twisting through their interactions, nodded slowly. "Ah, but the human heart, it harbors many things, does it not?" As the rain lashed against the manor's windows, Poirot felt a surge of clarity. Surely, if hidden agendas ran deep, the shadows must dim further still, cloaking yet another layer of truth. Perhaps the darkness that surrounded them meant that familiarity bore fatality. And then, like a maestro revealing a symphony's crescendo, Poirot elucidated, "I sense, dear friends, that in our midst lies not just one would-be betrayer, but an intricate tapestry of connections forged through whispers, bonds, and hidden desires that entwine us." The tension escalated, voices rose, and accusations flew like sharp arrows through the coughing air. Yet within that chaos, Poirot's contemplative silence held even greater weight. The deeper he delved, the more tangled the threads became. In that moment, lurking just beyond the candlelight, the spectre of betrayal revealed itself. The young lady's hidden past intertwined not just with another, but entangled all of them. In a cruel twist, it would be the revelatory photo, murder masked by familiarity, that might ensnare them all. Poirot realized something monumentous. The invocation of fear would turn deeply rooted trust into ashes if exposed. When the shadows were finally drawn back, the atmosphere was electric with consequences yet unrevealed. All that remained looming was the darker truth that now hovered close, like the storm about to unleash itself upon the world. As the thunder rolled again, shaking the very foundation of Blackwood Manor, Poirot spoke resolutely into the charged silence. We are prisoners not only of this cyclone, but also of our choices. How delicate our bonds, how treacherous these emotions, until all is laid bare. In the wake of his words, it became undeniable. As tension continued to rise, a significant reckoning approached. A final abyss awaited them, as chaos threatened to consume the sanctity they believed. And the question was no longer whether fear would manifest, but when, and therein lay the heart of true darkness. Chapter 7. The Double Life Unraveled. The sound of shattering glass pierced the thick blanket of darkness enveloping Blackwood Manor, sending ripples of terror through the remaining inhabitants. In the flickering candlelight, shadows danced wickedly upon the walls, hinting at ghosts not merely from the past, but born of secrets yet to be unveiled. Poirot stood at the edge of the room, heart poised between apprehension and resolve. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, the gravity of the night pressing against his very soul. What else lurks in the recesses of our hearts that we dare not acknowledge? As the echoes of chaos subsided, a strange stillness cloaked the manor, a silence filled with unspoken fears and unresolved emotions. Edward, Evangeline, and Lady Agnes stood clustered together, their faces a mix of agitation and uncertainty. Yet beneath their veneer of anxiety lay threads of dark intentions, each woven tightly into the fabric of their histories. Poirot's keen gaze flickered between them, noting the subtle twinges that betrayed their machinations. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, he thought, allowing a moment for contemplation before stepping into the fray. Evangeline, still trembling from the recent fright, held her arms defensively around herself. "Surely we must investigate the dining room again. This cannot be mere illusion." Her voice trembled, yet there was a strength beneath, an unknowing challenge veiled in innocence. Indeed, the shattering of that vase, its remnants, reveal not only a disturbance of decor, but a rupture of greater significance. Poirot responded, moving toward the scattered shards on the floor, each a prism of potential truths waiting to catch the light of revelation. "We must ask ourselves, what is it that we are truly afraid of?" Lady Agnes interjected, her voice weary yet tinged with sharpness, as if the mere act of inquiry threatened her carefully crafted facade. "Is it the fear of the unknown, or the truth hidden within our own shadows?" Her fingers trembled lightly around the wine-glass, a fragile shield against Poirot's probing gaze. "You speak of shadows, my dear Lady Agnes, yet often it is one's own fears that manifest their dread. Let us examine the what and the why," Poirot urged, his eyes flitting among them as he detected their shifting postures, the tightening of their jaws. "Each of you holds a key, and together, perhaps, we can unlock the chains of this enigma." As Poirot endeavored to dissect their allegiances, an unsettling thought curled through his mind. Edward had, from the very beginning, maintained a stoic exterior that now seemed suspiciously crafted, a mask thinly painted over tremulous fears. "And you, my dear Edward," Poirot said, infusing his words with careful scrutiny, "your alibi remains too pristine, too polished. None forgets the spectre of resentment, especially in times of burgeoning might." The furrows that creased Edward's brow revealed more than just concern. They spoke of unvoiced fears leaping beneath the surface. "I assure you, Poirot, I have harbored no ill will toward anyone. Beatrice's death has left us all bereaved." Edward's retort came quickly, the unease barely concealed. Yet behind the clamor of worry and grief lay an intricate complexity. Poirot noted the slight hitch in his breath as he sputtered the name of Beatrice, the deceased thorn piercing through their camaraderie. "Ah, but that which we grieve can sometimes entangle us further still," Poirot mused softly, memories of their entangled histories playing like shadows before him. Evangeline watched Edward with pained anticipation. "If we are to navigate this web of darkness, we must be frank. I have seen you slip away into corners of this manor late at night, Edward. What do you do? Why do you keep such secrets?" Her voice hovered, laced with challenge, as her own heart thudded against her rib cage. At that moment, Poirot gleaned that the gravity of mistrust was building, growing heavier, spiraling into an abyss neither anticipated. "Yes, what do you conceal in the folds of what you call duty, Edward?" the detective pressed, his tone modulated with a gentle yet firm urgency that sought deeper truths hidden beneath artful facades. Edward's eyes hardened, a flicker of anger flashing within their depths. "I am a loyal guardian of this estate, nothing more. Personal matters. These are trifles compared to the legacy I must uphold," he snarled, the tremor in his voice painting 1,000 unprized stories. Poirot, however, was already observing the cracks in the charade, noting how both he and Lady Agnes lost their balance, each gripping their roles with fewer anchors. With swift precision, he redirected their focus. "We must turn our scrutiny to what binds you all. What ties you to Beatrice and this manor?" he commanded, his tone tightening with expectation. A heavy pause stretched as the storm rumbled outside, casting an oppressive hush. In that silence, Poirot felt the weight of their intertwined histories calling to be revealed. "What of your late-night meetings, Edward? Were they but duties, or perhaps discussions darker and more duplicitous?" Lady Agnes's gaze flickered toward Edward, and in that moment, Poirot could almost taste the air shift. The suspicion snaking through their discourse took on a life of its own. It was Evangeline who shattered the tension, her voice breaking like the delicate glass beneath their feet. What if all of this, a mere charade of fear, was orchestrated to cover something deeper, perhaps something unspeakable? The tempest howled outside, thunder crashing in unforgiving bursts, while Poirot navigated the surfacing shadows of hidden lives. The realization flooded through him, imbuing the air with electric tension. For he now understood. Within this turmoil lay roles obscuring the very fabric of their existence. Edward's knowledge of the estate, Lady Agnes's relentless need for power, and Evangeline's innocence intertwined in a double life of lurking betrayals, casting their fates into disarray. "Indeed, my friends," Poirot's voice reverberated through the dim parlor, "a duality is present among us, a facade cloaking not just mere lives, but deeper truths. Your entwined existence born from loyalty and betrayal alike, creates a tapestry stretched too thin. Stepping slightly forward, he allowed the panic and resolve to spiral into a crescendo. I believe it is now time to lay bare these hidden lives within this misery, time to uncover the dark secrets ensconced in our midst before they consume you. As he prepared to unveil the intricate web woven from fear and unspoken truths, Poirot knew he stood on the precipice of a monumental discovery. The revelations spoke of complicity and calculated deception that lingered too close for comfort, waiting in the shadows for their due reckoning. With each awakening moment, it became apparent that one among them was not merely a passive actor, but the orchestrator in this equation, a conspirator keenly aware of the price paid for their deception. Prepare yourselves, for the truth often rises from the depths of darkness, casting forth revelations that shall forever change the contours of your lives, Poirot uttered with an air of unwavering certainty, as the candle flames flickered in harmony with the diverging paths destined to collide. As the clock struck midnight, an ethereal tension cloaked the manor, the air thick with portent. Darkness swirled and eddied, leading them ever closer to the dark heart of the matter, where not only their present fates hung in the balance, but the very essence of their lives, a reckoning awaiting the light of truth. Thus the shadows shouted softly their secrets as Poirot unwound the threads of lives intertwined. Chapter 8. The Mysterious Red Herring. A scream echoed through Blackwood Manor, shattering the chilling stillness of the storm-ravaged night. Lady Agnes, wild-eyed and trembling, stood framed in the doorway of the study, her face as pale as the moonlight filtering through the rain-soaked windows. "Poirot, it's Evangeline. She's fallen. Someone has struck her." The words tore through the gathering darkness, igniting a fresh wave of terror that coursed through the manor's inhabitants. In an instant, Hercule Poirot was at her side, his mind a flurry of thoughts, a whirlwind of conjecture. As he proceeded into the study, he was struck by the morbid tableau before him. Amidst an array of scattered manuscripts and toppled chairs, lay Evangeline, unconscious, her golden curls a stark contrast against the dark hardwood floor. A crimson smear on the wall suggested more than mere accident. A brutal blow had struck, and she lay there, an innocent caught in an intruding labyrinth of malice. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered, kneeling beside her, eyes narrowed with intensity. "What foul game is played in this house, amidst bonds woven with treachery and fear?" He could feel the electric pulse of the storm outside, a sinister harmony to the chaos unfolding within. As Poirot caught Evangeline's breathless sigh, he glanced around the room, cataloguing the figures surrounding him. Edward leaned against the mantel, his face a mask of anguish. Lady Agnes hovered nearby, her hand pressed tightly against her chest, as if to quell the tempest of her emotions. Then there was the shadow of a figure he had not yet turned his attention toward. Henry, the beleaguered butler, stood rigid against the doorframe, a cipher of composure, but with something unsettling swirling in his eyes. "What transpired here?" Poirot demanded, his voice tinged with an urgent calm. "We must not linger in the fog of uncertainty. I require your observations." Lady Agnes retreated further into the shadows, her indignation veiled with delicate poise. "I was merely attempting to reassure Evangeline. Last night's events have left us all frazzled. Surely we cannot suffer another turn of ill fortune so soon." "Murder is no trifling accident, Lady Agnes," Poirot interjected sharply, his tone cold like the metallic glint of a dagger. And I dare say, distress may inspire motives entwined too closely. Pray, allow us to piece together the fragments of this calamity. With deft precision, Poirot steered the conversation toward Edward. You, my friend, your handsome facade betrays an unsettling stillness. What do you know of Evangeline's late-night wanderings? The cryptic shadows have often concealed tales more ominous than the heart can bear. Edward stammered, There's been little time to postulate, Poirot. Our friend is in distress. I sought to keep this matter from unraveling, though it is no use. He looked imploringly at Poirot, but something lurked behind his eyes, an unarticulated fear that hinted at bitter histories. Poirot slowly studied the room. The shattered glass vase, remnants of what had once held vibrancy, fallen to ruin. Each shard reflected snippets of fear, anger, despair, colors devilishly intermingled in the drama that had unfolded. Little secrets create chains, bind us, and behind this chaos lies a carefully constructed deceit, worthy of inspection. What deeper truths trouble you all? He pivoted, directing scrutiny to Henry, who shifted uncomfortably at the door's threshold. The butler's voice broke through the reticence. I overheard whispers, confessions of heartache and betrayal. My lady, I fear, was cultivating a dangerous familiarity. If I'm guilty of anything, it is my failure to protect this house from its demons. His eyes darted nervously, as if seeking a refuge from Poirot's steady gaze. Poirot sensed the tension rippling through the group, an intricate web of emotions threatening to ensnare them all. Ah, yes, but my dear Henry, insecurity can prompt unbidden reactions from even the most faithful servant. Perhaps your knowledge bestows upon you certain advantages. The atmosphere crackled with the unfulfilled potential of discovery, and Poirot's mind raced. Each character here bore the weight of veiled histories, but one among them seemed to carry a greater burden, one distinct from the others. It was Evangeline's soft cries for help that beckoned him like a distant siren, a life teetering on the brink of a deeper truth. As the clock ticked on, the tempest raged outside, contributing to the urgency within, as Poirot mirrored their gathering suspicions towards Edward. The alibis you present yield fragility when tempered with truth. The burden of grief can sometimes invoke profound alterations in perception. Speak plainly. Share your burdens, Edward. An uneasy silence among them flickered, as if caught by an unseen gale. Edward's brow creased under the weight of his omissions. I confess, I grew weary of shadows, and I believed Evangeline sought comfort in my company. I would do anything to shield her from pain. But Poirot noticed the inflection in his voice, a hint of desperation guiding his fervent entreaty. Yet when desire blurs the line of friendship, the outcome is oft perilous, Poirot surmised, allowing a moment's pause before returning his gaze to Evangeline. What are we to uncover, dear friends, beneath the fabric of this mystery? The scene grew tenser as Lady Agnes, lured by the rising tension, finally spoke. If you speak of secrets laid thinly, Poirot, then we might examine the true contours of our loyalties. Have we not all, at some point, shared the nausea of betrayal? Suddenly, the storm's fury coalesced, tossing violent branches against the window panes, and chaos erupted anew. A crash of thunder accompanied a cacophony of overlapping voices, memories surfacing with the tide, their troubled pasts intertwining like a morbid tapestry of fate. Enough, Poirot declared. With the poise of a master conductor, he drew the tumult to order. The truth exists within the very breath we now take. A profound betrayal lurks amongst us, and in every sigh, reflection, our past haunts our present. Just as he uttered these words, a familiar chill engulfed the room. A glint caught Poirot's sharp eye as he turned toward the remnants of the shattered vase. A small bloodied handkerchief lay obscured among the glass shards, the initials discreetly embroidered. E.A. What treachery is this? Poirot murmured, piecing their world into focus. Our victim considers herself not simply a casualty of ease, but a player in this tragic charade. Ah, the duplicity of trust, a game played with emotions as pawns. Evangeline stirred to life, her eyes fluttering open to reveal depths of anguish, mirrored by fear. With faltering strength, she whispered, I feared the truth would devour us all. I had to protect him. But none were loyal, not even I. And as her words faded, Poirot felt a further revelation blossom forth, a dark gust of truth encircling them all. Realization crashed upon him like the storm outside. The red herring, crafted perfectly, had lured him off course, while the true detonator, the coveted prize of betrayal, rested ever so close. Ah, but we are thus ensnared by our own traps, crafted inadvertently by fears so closely held dear. His words hung in the air like a guillotine poised to sever their tangled fates. It was Lady Agnes whose demeanor shifted, her facade of fragile grace shattering, drawing back the dark curtain on a tumultuous motive rooted in a need for power. She had nursed her resentment towards Evangeline, and now the stakes had risen impossibly high. Poirot turned once more to face them all, his eyes crystallizing with the precision of a finely tuned instrument. You, Lady Agnes, fostered a vendetta born of jealousy. Your heart's turbulent fervor burgeoned into malice that could not bear the light. And it was you sparking that fateful blow. But the truth's cruel embrace finds its grip on us all, as deadlier than any storm. As Lady Agnes fell silent, the realization settled heavy upon them. The last threads of their intertwining lives began to unravel, and as they did, the haunting echo of betrayal joined the symphony of the storm. Mon ami, Poirot murmured, watching with a steady heart. Within this tapestry lies the fabric of the human condition, woven precariously upon the gallows of trust. As the shadows dissect our stories, know this: every act, treachery, loyalty, betrayal, plays a part, like the whisper of the wind, beckoning us deeper into the abyss. With the thrilling horror of truth laid bare among them, the storm outside began to wane, leaving in its wake the eerie silence that engulfed the remnants of Blackwood Manor, a dark epicenter of intertwining fates forever altered. Chapter 9. Truth's Best Left Buried. Outside, the storm raged with newfound ferocity, rain slashing against the windows like 1,000 tiny daggers, and the air inside Blackwood Manor crackled with a raw electric tension. As the candlelight flickered, shadows danced on the walls, revealing the deep crevices of fear etched into every face. Poirot stood, unwavering amidst the chaos, nature's tumult, mimicking the discord simmering within the hearts that surrounded him. A sharp gasp punctured the clamor as Lady Agnes broke the thick silence, trembling uncontrollably, her hand pressed against her forehead. Evangeline, she has vanished. I cannot find her. The urgency in her voice was palpable, weaving an unsettling thread through the already frayed fabric of the evening. Poirot's alert gaze shifted, surveying the group assembled in the drawing room. Edward, face pale and strained, gripped the arms of his chair, while Henry, the butler, remained rigid, his eyes darting nervously like a caged animal aware of impending doom. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, taking measured steps towards Lady Agnes, his brow furrowing as the darkness of the night seeped deeper into their reality. Where might one consider her absence leads? Could it be perchance an impromptu retreat to the safety of solitude? His voice, calm yet heavy with foreboding, drew the eyes of the room, engaging their minds, coaxing the truth from the shadows. She was distressed before. Certainly she must have needed to clear her thoughts. Edward hastily interjected, a quaver of desperation tainting his words. His facade of calmness shook as he clenched and unclenched his fists. We certainly cannot place blame upon conditions outside our control. The implications of his defense knotted the tension tighter still, each word twisted with the unspoken weight of fear. Poirot raised a hand, silencing the torrent of emotions tumbling forth. Ah, dear Edward, thou speakest of conditions, when what we must examine are intentions. Is it not peculiar? The very absence of a soul grips us so profoundly. The silence stretches taut, a harbinger of secrets best left buried. He turned to Henry, studying him with careful precision. You, my good man, what do you know of this mystery? The butler gulped, his knuckles paling against the doorframe. I heard her, Lady Evangeline, whispering in the study. She spoke of things that belonged to the past, of betrayal and misdeeds long forgotten. To think such notions would surface now, minutes before we find she has vanished, Poirot remarked, narrowing his eyes beneath his prominent brow. What spurred her into the treacherous deep of those buried truths, I wonder? As darkness encroached, the storm outside echoed a feral cry, and Poirot beckoned Edward to join him in the drawing-room, the mood palpably thick with foreboding. Let us not neglect another aspect. What of your own private entanglements, Edward? You seemed particularly invested in her well-being tonight. Might that affection conceal something more sinister? Edward recoiled, his face momentarily flickering with a disquiet that revealed the cracks beneath his charismatic veneer. Poirot, my loyalty to her runs deeper than mere sentiment. Our friendship is forged through years of shared vulnerability. No sinister involvement dwells within. I swear it. Yet, even his own assurances rang hollow as Poirot's gaze probed deeper. Friendship oft wears the mask of malice, Poirot said, his voice smooth yet deliberate, as if casting a spell over the room. What shadows unsettled your heart? He turned to Lady Agnes, honing in on the frailty of her expression as she hesitated, face shadowed by her cascading hair. Perhaps you too possess thoughts unfit for the light of day. Have you considered your own feelings of animosity lurking beneath the facade of civility, jealousy fostered amongst whispered grievances? The storm roared now, a collective crescendo with the swell of emotional undercurrents among them. Lady Agnes swallowed hard, her hands trembling. I have wished for nothing but her happiness, yet it often felt as if she bore a legacy I could never reach, she replied breathlessly, though something simmered beneath her words, an edge scarcely masked by her facade. Poirot, aware of the fabric of lies weaving through the air, began methodically piecing together the narrative emerging from the chaos. Each character bore the weight of buried houses of shame, struggles unmapped by vulnerability. Think, my friends, is there not at least one skeleton in each of our closets? He pressed, turning toward Henry once more. And you, good sir, what hidden dealings do you harbor within your loyal heart? The impressionable butler recoiled again, yet urgency ignited his spirit. I merely serve this house, Monsieur Poirot. I've done what I could to integrate peace. though events of the past, oh, they have resurfaced. Demands for loyalty in exchange for silence. How chilling that loyalty can hold such double-edged sentiments, Poirot observed. One remains shackled by perhaps an unrequited sin, or a cherished yet overlooked promise. Just then, a loud crash echoed from the hallway as a door swung open violently, revealing the outlines of frightened figures converging with hastily drawn breaths. Evangeline stepped forth, a wild glint in her eye, clutching a frayed, bloodied handkerchief that dripped of evidence. I found this," she stammered, her voice trembling, revealing the vulnerability layered within her courage. The frantic pause became electric, a beacon shimmering on the precipice of chaos. "Evangeline," Poirot breathed, intensity slicing through the conflict. "To what weave of fate hath your presence followed? For in this singular act, the threads of truth tighten ominously about our fates." In the ensuing silence, a palpable tension settled as the group drew closer to the revelation inherent within their guarded hearts. "The truth is ominous, mon ami," Poirot finally declared, the shape of realization forming about them. "But whilst we dwell in the light of this revelation, it swiftly unveils darker shadows beneath its surface." "Wait," Lady Agnes cried in desperation, new-found ferocity illuminating her demeanor. "Evangeline could never hold such secrets alone. I saw him take her aside." The weight of accusation fell, leaving stunned silence. "He loves her." The revelation swept like a gust through the room, and Poirot's composure faltered, but just barely, as realization painted her motives with horrific clarity. "Oh mon Dieu, the very heart of this affair unravels to reveal a visceral truth. This web of lies entangles all, spun by the greed for absolution." A final revelation lurked, a red herring cast adrift, its shimmering surface fooling even the observant. It was not shame, but a more insidious thread. Betrayal garbed in affection, a game wherein the rules shifted with every heartbeat, as the candle flames flickered low and the storm dissipated outside. Poirot rested his gaze upon each of them, his voice steady, as he proclaimed the dark yet noble essence of their flawed humanity. "It is not merely the sins we bear, but also the truths we hide that dictate the tempest of our lives. Buried truths yield regrets that haunt longer than the freedom of exposure. Through your secrets, betrayal taints the noble form of love with the residue of ceaseless remorse. Now you must unearth the weight of your own sins and embrace their shadows." With that, silence enveloped them, a silence drenched in realization, guilt, and sorrow, sealing a fate they had forged amidst the intertwining dance of trust and betrayal, forever changed beneath the dim glow of flickering candlelight. Chapter 10. The Game of Deceit. A cacophony of thunder shattered the oppressive silence of the night, and a figure lay sprawled, lifeless, upon the drawing-room floor, the rich carpet blooming with crimson, a morbid tapestry woven with the threads of ambition and betrayal. It was a tableau of horror, illuminated by sputtering candles that flickered against the encroaching darkness, their light revealing the grotesque truth of human frailty. "Mon Dieu," Poirot whispered under his breath, his heart steadying within the tempest of emotions swirling around him. There, the lifeless body of Edward lay, an expression of shock forever etched upon his face, his hand clutching a shattered glass, an unwilling participant in a game of deceit that had escalated beyond mere rivalry. The storm outside seemed to mirror the chaos within the manor, lashing against the windows, as if nature itself protested the treachery that unfolded indoors. Lady Agnes, her face a mask of distress, staggered back, her eyes wild with horror as she gasped, "Edward, what have we done?" The butler, Henry, stood paralyzed by the threshold, the pallor of his face contrasting sharply with the shadows that danced around him, revealing unease, born of secrets best left shrouded in darkness. And then there was Evangeline, her expression shattered, teetering on the brink of despair as she clutched a tattered handkerchief, evidence perhaps of her final moments with the deceased. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, Poirot mused quietly, observing the reaction of each presence in the room as if they were pieces on a grand chessboard. The air was thick with tension, every breath laden with guilt and suspicion. No one among them was innocent. Each harbored secrets, compatibility dancing dangerously close to malevolence. As dark clouds cloaked the moon, Poirot stepped forward, the sharp cadence of his shoes echoing like a heartbeat in the stillness. We must illuminate the path shrouded in shadows. One among you is animating this tragic spectacle. The truth of Edward's demise rests in the minds of those who wrangle with their own intentions. He started with Lady Agnes, whose visage hung vacant, as thoughts twisted within her troubled heart. Your bond with Edward bore the weight of hidden grievances, draped in the fabric of longing and unfulfilled aspirations. Is it not true? The quiver in her lips was betraying, as she avoided his gaze. I wanted to uplift him, to lighten the burdens he carried, she stuttered, her voice laced with sharp edges. Yet he resisted. He cherished dark designs that eclipsed our familial ties. Poirot noted the flutter of anxiety in her eyes and a subtle tightening of her hands as they clutched the chair. Anger perhaps mingled with sorrow, a dangerous concoction. He turned his piercing focus to Henry, the butler whose loyalty was an echo of his own misgivings. And you, dear Henry, a man of service, yet harboring a past like a festering wound. What might it be that unravels your image of the resolute steward? Did loyalty not beckon you toward the shadows of betrayal? The butler recoiled, his breaths coming in short gasps. I serve this house, Monsieur Poirot. It is my sworn duty, he protested, though his clipped tone echoed weakly against the walls, stones rich with memories of walls besmirched with long-buried grievances. Poirot's hawk-like vision dissected Henry's expression. The flickering candlelight revealed a bead of sweat trickling down his brow, fear metamorphosing into despair. The heart of fidelity often aligns with darker inclinations, is it not, Henry? Tell me, what entanglements did Edward possess that may have provoked mortification? As the room thickened with tension, Evangeline spoke hesitantly, her voice trembling like the flames before her. He revealed to me secrets of ambitions unfulfilled, she stammered, her gaze flitting between Poirot and the lifeless body of Edward. But I could not bear the weight of his hope. I thought to escape, but he begged me to stay. A hush enveloped the room, her words resonating with the familiar echo of regret. Poirot paced thoughtfully, a precision honed through years of inquiry, guiding each step as he wove through the fog of confusion. Ah, but the stage upon which we perform our fates is fraught with mystery, is it not? Each move invokes the tempest of our struggles. He considered the empty glass, the crimson pool marking Edward's charming veneer as nothing more than pale reflection of shadows navigating their lives, none truly free from sin. But could they be but pawns in a more intricate game? Poirot's thoughts churned, piecing together the elements that had slipped through the cracks. You, Lady Agnes, so driven by desire and envy. Henry, tethered to a past demanding fidelity. And you, Evangeline, bound by emotional entanglements that drifted dangerously close to the edge of despair. Evangeline, you fled, yet your inherent connection holds within it the power of undoing. Did it not spur Edward to seek solace, or perhaps confrontation? No, Evangeline interjected, her eyes wide with disillusionment. He wished for redemption, an entreaty to abandon whatever thrall held sway over our lives. With her admission hanging in the air, Poirot began to unravel the knotted threads. Ah, but does the past remain so easily forsaken? You were intertwined with a tapestry. It calls forth revelations, yes, but concealed beyond that. Veil is a darker betrayal yet unspoken. Suddenly, he paused, realization striking like lightning. The glass shard, nestled in Edward's grasp, was not merely a remnant of despair, but a marker of regret, laden with the weight of consequences intertwined. He turned towards Henry. But then, my dear, there are shadows to navigate. You remained loyal to whom? Edward, or your own haunting past, intertwined and cloaked in the guise of fidelity? A confession slipped from the butler's lips, revelation cascading like a torrential downpour as he spoke. I had wished for silence, forsaking my own history, eager to reconcile my life with this house. Edward learned of my past and threatened exposure, a betrayal long hidden, stemming from the ghosts of decisions I could not navigate. It was the red herring that had masked the inner workings of the heart, revealing deep-seated treachery beneath the veneer of decorum. In a moment that hung between fate and poignancy, Poirot's mind turned once more. Yet one truth remains. The game of deceit draws each of you into its embrace. Edward's demise now unveils shadows buried. Yes, but what if it is not merely consequence that defines your existence? May your motives unearth a more vivacious betrayal. And just as the full weight of understanding settled upon the group, a figure emerged from the shadows, the lingering presence of Edward's twin brother, an embodiment of conflict and aspirations unfulfilled. You thought you could bury your past, he yelled, fury marred by desperation. The revelation of identity contorted the understanding of each participant as the truth of sibling rivalry spilled forth, a tragic descent into darkness incited by the echoes of betrayal. As the storm outside finally faded to an unsettling calm, Poirot concluded, the depths of the human heart render it an ingenious architect of betrayal, and it is therein where we must unearth the husks of our lives. Beware, for in grasping desires, the veil of civility blinds us to the depths we tread. His voice lingered as the candlelight flickered, a poignant reminder that the perilous game of deceit had devoured them all, forever entwined in the swirling shadows of darkness. With that haunting echo, the fabric of their lives lay irrevocably altered, the inky blackness enveloping them, leaving only the flickering candlelight to illuminate the depths of their despair. Chapter 11. The Unmasking of Evil. A piercing scream sliced through the darkness, echoing like a mournful wail in the decaying halls of the manor, awakening a cacophony of emotions within its walls. The tempest roared outside as if the very heavens bore witness to the horrors contained within, lending a grotesqueness to the shadows that loomed in every corner. Edward's lifeless form lay as the grim centerpiece of this tableau, but now another soul, a shadowy figure, half hidden in the darkness, was gone, leaving only whispers of dread lingering in the air. Mon Dieu, Poirot murmured, his gaze sharp as he surveyed the chaos. Each other presence in the room was marked by turmoil, yet they held secrets beyond the tarred surface of grief. Lady Agnes clutched her pearls, her expression stricken with shock, but in her eyes glimmered the remnants of something more sinister, a flicker of fear, mingled with regret. The butler, Henry, stood rigid, his hands shaking at his sides, while Evangeline hovered nearby, her face pale and drawn, like a wraith emerging from the shadows, a ghost trapped by her unspoken truths. Thus it begins anew, the game of unmasking evil, Poirot thought, circling the scene like a predator, prowling its territory, acutely aware of the weight of hidden guilt each character carried. Ah, but the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami. The storm raged on outside, a tempest that matched the emotional upheaval within the chamber where lives had been, shattered and trust unraveled. As Poirot examined Edward's body, his observant eyes caught the faintest glint, a silver cufflink glimmering in the candlelight, freshly polished yet oddly out of place amidst the scene of decay. He knelt to collect it, his mind racing to piece together the discordant notes of this unsettling symphony. A man of bad choices, perhaps, he considered, remembering how Edward's charm had once lured admiration and envy alike. Who would see him slain? Lady Agnes was the first to break the silence, her voice trembling with an undercurrent of accusation. He was not as innocent as you all think. It was his ambition for power that drove a wedge between us. The accusation hung heavily in the air, and Poirot noted the intentional rage behind her words. Her grievances ran deeper than mere familial discord. What say you, Henry? Poirot's steady gaze turned toward the butler, a figure of unwavering loyalty, yet whispers suggest shadows lurk behind every honorable facade. Have you nothing to impart upon us? The man's pallor deepened. Monsieur Poirot, my duty is steadfast, Henry replied, though his voice shook like fragile glass. I knew no malevolence from Edward. He was simply a master to me. A shroud of tension enveloped them. Poirot's mind danced through possibilities, weaving a web of deceit among them all. But Evangeline, who had stood aloof, finally interjected, her words slipping from her lips like delicate petals on a breeze. He spoke of dreams unfulfilled, of a life we could have had together. Her gaze fell to the ground as she clutched the tattered handkerchief tightly, its frayed edges hinting at the fraying of her own aspirations. Yet dreams can become nightmares, Poirot noted, watching her closely. In his pursuit of partnership, did you not weave a thread of entanglement, Evangeline? Was there not a darkness lurking just beneath the surface? The very air became thick with the tension of unspoken emotions, and he sensed the shuffle of feet behind him, where a door creaked, an unmistakable portent of more secrets cloaked in the shadows. As if summoned by intent, a figure stepped into the flickering light, a man, tall and angular, with an unsettling calm that exuded menace. It was Edward's twin brother, Theo, his eyes flashing with a tempest of resentment. You thought you could escape your past, he spat at Evangeline, the venom of accusation dripping from his tongue. Poirot observed the confrontation with keen interest. Here might lay the crux of the unfolding narrative. Ah, how interesting, Poirot mused internally, noting the deep vein of rivalry that had surged beneath layers of genteel dissemblance. Yet this tempest does not exist in isolation, he said, addressing Theo. For you, my dear brother, have your own demons. Edward once mentioned dreams of supremacy, but were they not your aspirations first? Does rivalry breed a motive darker than mere blood. With a trembling hand, Theo reached into his coat, producing something silver that glinted ominously. "You see this?" he demanded, his voice a low growl. "It was he who betrayed our familial bond, who usurped my chances at recognition." He hurled the silver object onto the table with disdain. A small dagger, its blade gleaming ominously in the candlelight, a dagger unmistakably marked with the initials of the household, a potent symbol of trust twisted by betrayal. Poirot's mind whirled with the sequences of splintering choices. The tension in the room crackled like electricity. He could feel the churning emotions colliding, their essence swirling dangerously close to eruption. Just then, the gasping breaths of Lady Agnes broke the silence anew. "But he never meant to harm. What would you gain? You were brothers, for heaven's sake." Poirot held up a hand for calm, shaking his head slightly, the threads of the web drawing taut with each revelation. "Yet, dear lady, in such moments of desperation, clarity fades, our hearts twist, and in their dark recesses, aspirations can be rewritten into motives of destruction. But I posit there exists yet a larger scheme, a red herring, perhaps, lurking unseen." As his gaze swept across the room, he scribbled mental notes, tracing pathways that led to deception. With a sudden clarity that shocked even himself, the details swirled into view, a tangled dance of betrayal unfurling beyond the confines of familial jealousy. None of you are innocent, each tethered to the past, each ensnared by desire. We now unearth what lurked in shadows so deep it eluded us all. The room's tension became profound, the air humming with unsettling revelations as Poirot launched into his deducing, meticulously piecing the fragments together. The dagger speaks of more than mere quarrels, but you, dear Theo, you are not just the scorned brother, but the puppet master, controlling your own narrative. With a decisive step, he pointed to Henry. "And you, dear butler, concealment of your own transgressions unraveled the threads connecting this tapestry of malevolence. It was Edward who sought exposure of your past, threatening not just your position, but your very being. Yet you knew the house's darkest secrets." "A game of masks," Poirot declared, his voice lifting above the tumult. "For an orchestrated death exists within all of you, a consequence born from a potpourri of envy, pride, and a will to survive beyond mere existence. And you believed you could act unchallenged, yet each of you bore witness to the other's failings in your pursuit of ambition." The realization settled over them, as heavy as the storm now receded into silence. Each character held the weight of betrayal, and each emotion simmered just beneath the surface, poised to lash out with fervor. Poirot concluded with poignant finality. "Beneath the pained masks we all wear lies an evil most profound. These intertwined destinies bear the destruction only dreams unfulfilled can bring. Remember this, dear friends, when the heart forsakes its own, it beckons the depths of darkness." With those words hanging in the obsidian air, Poirot turned, determining intentions that echoed beyond the night. The complex shadows of their lives became symbols, each entwined in the unmasking of their own evil, forever altered beneath the weight of their remorse. In abandonment of the limelight, darkness cloaked their true selves, leaving only the embers of old ambitions and the faint essence of humanity that lingered amidst the candlestick shadows. Chapter 12. The Final Twist. A muffled cry shattered the oppressive silence, echoing through the dimly lit halls of Dunsmuir Manor, reverberating with the weight of despair that hung in the air like thick fog. The flickering candlelight cast shifting shadows, creating ghosts among the guests, many of whom had experienced enough torment that night to fit a lifetime of secrets beneath their skin. Poirot leaned closer to the flickering flames, his discerning eyes meticulously scanning the room, each movement deliberate and precise. Mon ami, it appears that the shadows not only conceal light, but weave a tapestry of deceit, n'est-ce pas? The guests, a once vibrant ensemble now transformed into a gallery of troubled faces, could only hold their breath as they awaited Poirot's conclusions. Lady Agnes, her attire now denser with the clinging spectre of death, clutched a handkerchief that trembled almost as much as her resolute facade. Edward was a man unrepentant, she murmured, her eyes darting toward the portrait of a once proud family, betrayed and burdened with ambition. Beside her, Theo stood rigid against the wall, a spiteful glare, marred by confusion, clouding his handsome features. My brother thought himself invincible, he spat, venom curling around every syllable. But power corrupts, and in pursuit of it, he hurt those closest to him. Then there was Evangeline, a mere flicker of light in the corner, her sobs muffled as she wrestled with the spectre of regret that haunted her every thought. We could have forged a partnership, a sanctuary from the storm, she lamented, her voice nearly drowned by the cacophony of the distant thunder clapping overhead. Yet dreams slip through our fingers, often leaving only ashes behind. Poirot nodded, his attentive gaze absorbing the despair radiating from each individual. Each word, each tremor echoed in his mind like musical notes, playing out a sinister symphony of motives and layers yet undiscovered. My dear friends, he began, his tone soft, yet slicing through the storm raging outside. It is not merely the dreams unrealized that bind you all. No, it is a deeper thread, one woven from the fabric of betrayal. As the turmoil simmered just below the surface, Poirot took a step forward, the shuffle of his shoes echoing softly against the polished wood. Tell me, Lady Agnes, if indeed your brother was as tyrannical as you now suggest, did you, perchance, bear the burden of a dark alliance? His gaze pierced her, searching for cracks in her polished surface, for the guilt she dared not voice. At that moment, an unsettling silence enveloped them, thick enough to slice. Edward always held my past over me, she finally whispered, shame suffusing her features. There were debts, betrayed clients, forgotten names that clung to me, and in his hands my future twisted into a puppet's thread. Ah, the human heart, it hides many things, mon ami, Poirot murmured, nearly to himself. In the eye of his mind, he began to weave together the straying threads of these confessions. Over and over, each word bore deeper implications, the strands of guilt intertwining until they formed a labyrinth built by desperation. Henry, Poirot turned sharply towards the butler, whose pallor contrasted violently with the warm glow of the candles. For a figure of steadfast loyalty, your loyalty might bear secrets, yes? You have tended to this house's mysteries, but which shadows play games upon your conscience? The butler's hands trembled, and he avoided eye contact like the truth itself. Monsieur Poirot, my duty, my loyalty to Edward, was untarnished. What was once a sanctuary morphed into a prison when the threat loomed so large. But a prison holds escape routes, Poirot pressed, leaning closer with a piercing gaze. Did he possess leverage, Henry? Secrets that would undermine your foundation? A darkness lurking within that could not rest until unleashed? With hearts clenching and a storm brewing, each character bore the weight of their own secrets, waiting to erupt. The chilling storm that raged outside reflected the inner turmoil brewing within these tormented souls, a tempest of hidden truths and concealed intentions. But perchance another shadow concealed itself among them. As Poirot engaged with Henry, Evangeline's former facade began to slip as she stepped forward, her voice trembling with sudden resolve. "Do not slander Henry. We all sought something from Edward, indeed. But he played us like pawns, dear Poirot. I, too, revelled in his ambitions. It was in our grasp, until he grew too greedy." The tension thickened as glances exchanged like daggers. "Then, my dear," Poirot remarked, his voice a soft caress over every word, "there exists no innocence within this chamber, only the ruin of aspirations." Yet the narrative of deserving innocence hung dangerously loose on Evangeline, and in that very moment she recoiled, plunging deeper into her multi-layered deception. I wanted him. I wanted what he could offer, not just the future, but the recognition of my inconsequential existence. Her confession fell, louder than the rolling thunder, and it ignited the atmosphere with an inferno of suspicion. Then, as if orchestrated by fate itself, a single candle flickered violently before extinguishing, plunging them into semi-darkness. When the lights returned, an overwhelming revelation gripped Poirot. A glint caught at the corner of his eye. A silver pendant lay sprawled on the ground, shimmering ominously under the modest luminosity left behind. "Ah, the truth wavers," Poirot announced, the pieces clicking into a sharp clarity. "You claim innocence. Yet, Henry, did you not observe the garment found on the mantel, stained with dreams of despair? It was the same striking blue as your own, dear lady," he directed toward Evangeline, now quaking beneath the weight of her denial. The revelations, like unrelenting waves, rattled every suspect depicted truth. A grand ruse, orchestrated through jealous machinations? Poirot mused, watching their reactions like shadows dancing lightly between horror and realization. Then, like thunder rolling forth, the final twist unraveled. The dagger revealed alongside a cache of letters, sealed but left unguarded, cascaded forth from the recesses of the house, bearing witness to what lay hidden. Edward's ambitions encircled all of you, yet one amongst you bore the dagger that ended it all, Poirot declared, returning his gaze to Theo, who stood at the trapdoor, leading into the depths beneath their very feet. To kill him was not merely to end a rivalry, but to craft a new narrative, Poirot concluded, sensing the urgency climaxing in an impending eruption. What remains unmasked is not merely a quest for power, but an unraveling woven in betrayal. As you, Theo, knew of Evangeline's aspirations, yet concealed them under your familial allegiance, an alliance steeped in treachery. Theo's mask crumbled, revealing desperation masked under layers of resentment and love. "He would destroy us all. He was toxic," he roared. "You cannot save them, Poirot. I was merely acting out the story that was already writ." Each character withering beneath the weight of their own burdens. Poirot's voice cut through, steadfast and piercing. Destruction comes to those who forsake their heart's truths. In the depths of ambition, the shadows whisper. One cannot escape the clutches of destiny. The essence of betrayal hung heavy in the candlelit chamber, lingering like a spectre, forever binding them to the treacherous darkness of their own creation, leaving each with a haunting reminder as to how far they allowed their desires to lead them astray. With every confession cascading forth, the triumphant finale of their intertwined secrets resonated in the storm that brewed outside, a relentless reminder that the echoes of the past can never truly stay buried.